Hello and welcome in, Mark here, aka the Markster. This is video number 77 in the FreeCAD series. Today we're going to continue looking at the MeshRemodel workbench. And I told you in the last video that I was going to show you how to make an ellipse with the MeshRemodel workbench. So that's going to be the topic today, and we'll maybe look at the B-splines also. So let's look at which version that we're working with. This is 0.19, one of the pre-release. We're still in that 0.19 development cycle. It's kind of an extended development cycle this time around. There was a lot of code that was added during the cycle, and that's kind of set it back a little bit. 0.20, I have a feeling is going to be even better yet. There's some exciting code changes that I expect are going to be coming in during that development cycle. So right now we're still in 0.19. You should move on up to 0.19. If you're using 0.18 stable release, go ahead and move on up to the 0.19. There's a video I made not that long ago showing you how to get 0.19 up and running. Alright, so we talked about in the last video making a ellipse or an arc of ellipse with the MeshRemodel workbench. So let's go ahead and cobble something together here in Part workbench to create an ellipse. And really it's just an intersection, a cross section of a cone at an angle. So let's add a cube here, and we'll rotate this cube and make a cut. Get that position. That ought to do it. Select the cone, select the cube, make a cut. So this is an ellipse. And how would you model this in MeshRemodel? Well, let's go to Mesh Design now and turn it into a mesh. Create mesh from shape. And I'll just use the default. So you've got this mesh object, and you need to remodel this for some reason. We'll go into MeshRemodel to get our toolbar up, and then we'll switch over to Part. Alright, so we're going to need to make the points object for this to give us all of the vertices of the mesh object to work with. Now to make a simple circle like at the bottom here, we can do that directly in MeshRemodel. Just select 3 of these points, try to get them more or less equidistant, and make that circle. But this top one is more of a challenge. And what we're going to need to do here, we'll select 3 points to define the plane. We'll click on this tool here, which makes a coplanar points object. And if we press the Alt key while we click, it also creates an empty sketch, maps it to that plane defined by these 3 points, and it places links to external geometry for all of those coplanar points. So we want to hold down the Alt key. Now if you're on a Mac, it's going to be a different key, I think. I'm not really sure. You probably know already which key maps to the Alt key. And then it'll ask us 3 points on the plane. We'll say yes. And that creates the sketch for us. It's an empty sketch. And we'll need to click this here, section view, so we can see what we're doing. And so now we have links to external geometry created for us for all these points. You see, these are all external links for all the points that were in that coplanar points object. So only the points that were on the plane of that ellipse. So how do we add an ellipse to here in the sketcher? Well, right here. And you can see they even have a little cone showing that it is a cross section of a cone. And we choose just top one will be good. And I'm just going to put it out here to the side for now. And the trick is we need 5 points on that edge using this fix a point onto an object constraint. And then we'll try to get this situated fairly close now to where it goes. It's a little cantankerous. Sometimes you might have to remove the constraints and try again. It's, you know, it doesn't always work perfectly, but if you keep at it, you'll get it to line up and become fully constrained in the fullness of time. Alright, so that worked pretty well. So now we have that ellipse created exactly where it belongs. And we also have the circle at the bottom. So all we need to do is slide over to Part and loft these two together. Hopefully it's going to work for us. And that's our remodeled object. And we need to hide that face. And let's check the geometry, and hopefully it came out alright. Yep, no errors. And we've got a solid. So that's the best way to handle a situation where you need an ellipse. Now let's go ahead and go back to our original cut. And let's make another cut on top of here to make it a little more challenging. So we can make an arc of ellipse. So I'll just cut that little bit off. Select the cut, and then the cube, which is the cutting tool, and then do the cut. And then we'll go back to mesh design and create mesh from shape. So let's now take this to MeshRemodel. Actually, we just go to Part because we already have the toolbar up. And how would you remodel this in mesh design and MeshRemodel? Well, first, let's make our points object. Let's go to the bottom here and get this circle made. And then make the ellipse right here as before. And we'll make an arc of ellipse. Again, off to the side. We'll constrain that point here to this point. Coincidental constraint. Let's try this one to this point. And let's try this one on the edge. Maybe this one on this edge. Alright. And we're going to need to close this. Let's add a line segment here. You know, I'm thinking I should make that a full ellipse and then come make one here and cut it. So what I could do is loft to this one as a full ellipse first, and then make this one and cut it. That's going to be the strategy. I'm going to delete that one and make a regular ellipse. Should have planned out this ahead of time. Again, I'll put it off to the side. And let's put one here. And like I said, this can be cantankerous. It's kind of like dealing with that 2D offset tool or that thickness tool. You know, sometimes they work, but this one you can usually get it to work. You just got to keep kind of trial and error. And one more. Alright. Now we'll loft to that. And then we'll make another one here to cut that out. That's going to be circle and sketch. That one. Let's check the geometry on this. Alright, it's always good not to see any errors. And now, hide this one temporarily. Show our points object. Oops. And we'll select these 3 points, any 3 on this plane will do. Alt click here. Alright, now the arc. Ellipse. About to get cantankerous. Yeah, I think I selected the wrong point is what happened. Let me undo that. Yeah, I need the point at the end of the arc, not this one. Alright. Now this one here. Alright. It's not perfectly lined up. It looks pretty good. edge across. And now if we show our loft, we select this and extrude it. And just by any amount out beyond the edge, we should be able to cut it out. Should is the operative word there. Seems to have failed. Let's check the geometry on this. Looks good. Could be one of these coplanar face issues where these two faces are both coplanar. Could be the problem there. Let's delete this extrude, go back into the sketch. Delete that edge. We need something, maybe, I'm just thinking here, to extend beyond that, so let's try an arc. In the other direction. Just extend up some. And let's try that now. We'll extrude that one. And try to cut again. Nope. That wasn't it. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the seam line. Don't know why that cut's not working. There's the point. But that's not what we're trying to remove, it's this one. No, speechless. I got a feeling it's because of this being the same exact size there. I don't know how to resolve that. Don't know if this is gonna fix it or not. Got my doubts. Extrude. Nope, just will not make that cut. It's a bug in OpenCascade. It's got to do with coplanar edges. So let me try this. I'm trying to move this entire object in some. Let's create an axis and apply along that axis 0.1. And now let's see if that'll let it cut. Yes. But it's not the result I wanted. But it did at least work. Let's see. So when you click 2 points in the placement task and click selected points, it creates a custom axis. And then when you click apply axial, the amount in here is going to move in the direction of that axis. So try to move just a real tiny amount. Yeah, that looks better. So we kind of cheated a little bit, but we'll work through. There's some kind of a bug in OpenCascade, which is the CAD kernel that FreeCAD uses. So FreeCAD is like an interface to the geometric kernel, and it creates the visualization and all the documents and all that. But under the hood, it's using OpenCascade to do these cuts and things of this sort. And sometimes when you have coplanar faces or seams that are lined up, it'll cause these operations to fail. I'm not sure exactly why. It could be something to do with just the way that floating point values are stored in computer memory. It makes them inherently inaccurate. Some numbers you just cannot store, like for example 1/3, 1/3. Well, it's 0.33, you say. Well, it's not, it's 0.333. But it's not that either, it's 0.33333 forever. There's an infinite number of threes, and no matter how much memory you have, you cannot represent all of those threes. And we're not even talking about pi and e and other numbers like that. So these numbers, these floating point numbers, they can only be stored to some arbitrary amount of accuracy or precision based on how much memory you're willing to allocate to that task. So that could be the reason for some of these failures like this. It's seeing those two numbers as identical when they're not, or maybe the opposite, to see them then as not identical, because they're not identical, but they really are. It's just one's being stored at one level of precision and the other at another level of precision. So that could be, I'm just guessing here, grasping for straws. It could be part of that bug and what's behind it. I'm not really sure. But sometimes you just have to move things around a little bit and make a cut happen. So we got a little bonus coverage there in this video. I wasn't intending on talking about that, but it came up. So we've covered now the points object, the wireframe object, the cross sections object, the coplanar points object, the point, the line segment, the polygon. We haven't covered the B-spline yet. So maybe I'll make another video in this series, maybe covering that. It would be another way to manage the ellipse, because you could just select all the points along the edge and turn that into a B-spline. Results may vary on how successful that'll be. I've had it fail the check geometry test. This uses a draft B-spline object, and they're continuity C2, so you have different levels of continuity for B-splines. They can be C0, which I believe means they're not connected at all. There's an opening. C1 means it's connected, but it's not a real smooth connection. C2 means where it comes together, it's a pretty good connection. That's what you get with the draft B-splines. You get a C2 continuity. But there are higher levels of continuity that are even better. But if you're at a certain point doing certain operations, C2 is just not quite good enough. And so sometimes it fails that check geometry test, which doesn't necessarily mean the object is unusable. You might still be able to use it in Boolean operations. You might still be able to make a perfectly good mesh object and print it out on your printer. But I like to get my models when I can where they'll pass even that stringent bob check test. So when you do your geometry check, you go look into the settings here. Be sure to have this run bob check enabled. And these are the individual bob checks. The one that takes the longest to run is self-intersect, but it's probably the most important also, and it does a continuity check. If it comes up C0, that's a failure. You can try to run single threaded. That's a little diagnostic if it's crashing or something on you, which this will do from time to time, so save your work before you run it. Expand shape content. And that's the shape content here. You can have it expanded automatically if you want it. So you click that. I should probably have it clicked because I like to open that and look at it. So if I run the check, you see it's automatically open. And we have some other things in here. We looked at upgrade and downgrade. We looked at creating a new empty sketch, have we? This creates a sketch based on the object that you have selected. So if you have a wire selected, or say the circle selected, you could create a sketch. Pressing Control click. So it made a sketch out of that circle. But the problem is it's not at the same place anymore. It's going to be on the origin. If we look at our axis cross, where it's at, you see that circle sketch, which is a sketch, has been placed on the origin. So you would have to move your sketch to get it back where it's supposed to be, which is not always going to be a simple task if your object has been rotated or if it's not on center like this one happened to be. But that would enable you to make a more parametric object, because then you can go in and constrain your sketch. And let's go to the workbench here and look at the menu. A few more things. You can merge sketches. So if you make a sketch out of different objects, you can combine them into one sketch. This is just a link, convenience link to the same tool that's in the Sketcher workbench. Validate sketch. I thought it would be useful to have to check for missing coincident constraints. So if your face looks closed but it's got an opening somewhere, you can use this to validate your sketch and look for those missing constraints. See right here, you would set a fairly large value, fine, and it found no missing coincidence constraints. There's some other things in here too. And recently has been added this degenerated geometry check, which I haven't been able to play with yet. Alright, so we're at a 30-minute mark, 34 minutes, coming up on 35. It's time to go ahead and wrap this video up. Thank you for watching as always, and have a great day.